So let's go ahead and do some introductions. And first of all, we welcome you today. Like I said, this is the Utah League of Cities and Towns, Lunch with the League. Today, our topic is connecting your community, state and federal broadband opportunities and resources. And there is a wealth of information and resources that can benefit all cities and towns throughout the state of Utah. So this is an initiative that has been granted some significant funding, and it means wonderful new opportunities for our communities. So this is an opportunity definitely that you should take advantage of. And I'm going to get started by introducing our guests. We've got Rebecca Dilg, the director of the Utah Broadband Center. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Liz Gabbitas, I'm sorry, I knew I'd do that wrong, the Digital Access and Education Manager of the Utah State Library Division. I thought my title was long, but yours has to be longer than mine.
It's laughably long.
And then Vikram Ravi, the Federal Program Officer for the U.S. Department of Commerce. Welcome, Vikram. Glad to have you here. And my name is Susan Wood. I'm the Director of Communications with the League of Cities and Towns. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to get started by talking about high-speed internet connectivity throughout the state. And again, if you are here with us live, let us know who you are and what you're hoping to take away by just making a comment in the chat room and introducing yourself. And then also this will be available as a video link to all of our ULCT members if you just check out our website and look under resources. So Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you to get started. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan, and thank you all for joining us. And this is a really great initiative, and we wanted to, I'm pleased to be able to share this with you and seek for your support and help. So I'm going to share my screen right now. I've got a slide presentation that we'll kind of hop through and just I'm assuming that you can see that okay. So again, I'm Rebecca Dilg, the director of the Utah Broadband Center. This is from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And I'm so pleased to be joined with my colleagues, Vikram and Liz, and many others who are supporting this effort. So we want to introduce you to this Connecting Utah initiative. Connecting Utah is a need to get our goal is to get all Utah all online. So we all know, I think the story has been told time and again. We learned, especially during the COVID time, the value of being able to access the internet, and not only the internet, but high-speed internet. It allows us to participate in modern society with healthcare, educational opportunities, and economic development. Earlier this year, this is a story that Liz shared with us, and she can correct me anywhere I get wrong, but there was a library patron who had been working in hospitality all his life and was working hours trying to get his high school diploma. And he said it was almost impossible because he was having to do it online and he was working through jobs, and he used to bike to the library after his last shift at 1 a.m. and using the public Wi-Fi outside the library to submit assignments or to take tests. And he had just expressed to the librarians how impossible this was. Well, he's not alone. Over 1/3 of low-income households don't have internet access. And 1 in 10 still don't have any type of devices. And more than 250,000 Utahns rely on cell phones as their only method of internet. Well, at the Grand County Public Library, where the story began, they were able to check out a Chromebook and a hotspot to this patron, and he carried it everywhere. So with these devices, he could work at school, wherever it was convenient, between jobs and breaks. So this was something that was funded and implemented through the State Division of Libraries and was sent out through all the libraries, which was a lifesaver for him. And he eventually got his degree and has now moved on into better employment beyond hospitality, or has reached a level of with his high school degree of doing much better. Now, we want to step it up a notch or two and get affordable internet to his home. So here's an example. We're just going to give you a little brief broadband internet 101. So here's a map that we have developed that shows unserved areas. So when we say unserved, it doesn't mean maybe that you don't have internet, but it's not high-speed internet. So it's any area across the state that has less than 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload. That's considered unserved. And underserved is any area that's under 100 megabits per second down and 20 megabits per second upload. Now, this is kind of like driving down the freeway. Do we want to go 25 down the freeway or 100 down the freeway? So with the added capacity, with this increased speed, we're able to do much more devices. Your streaming's not stopped. You're not in a video call. I work from home sometimes, and when I get the little message that says your internet may be unstable, well, then I have to go in the other room and tell someone to get off their device or get off the TV or the internet, because I don't have high-speed internet. So internet comes via fiber optics, cable, digital subscriber line or DSL, satellite, and you may have, it is helpful if you know how it is that you're receiving it, because you're going to get different speeds based on the technology. So why? Well, it's not just availability of the infrastructure. As we learned, more than 70,000 Utah households do not have internet connectivity for a variety of reasons. And about 26,000 households in Utah don't even have a computer. It can also, besides the infrastructure, be an issue of affordability. Can they make a monthly payment? Or accessibility? Do they understand how to use the internet? Or do they have the appropriate devices to do so? So we have a why also to create a statewide digital connectivity plan, because with a plan, we can guide Utah's efforts to connect all residents with a reliable and affordable high-speed internet service. The process to complete this digital connectivity plan, and this is the title of it, is a digital connectivity plan for the state of Utah, is to identify the infrastructure, accessibility, and affordability, which the needs, and develop the goals, the strategies, and initial measures to meet those needs. So we have a team of people, which includes Liz, and includes Vikram from the federal government. It includes a consulting firm that we have hired to help us in developing this plan. They've begun contacting all of the counties and some of the cities. We're doing some outreach, and we need some help as we develop this plan. And this plan isn't just here and now. This is a 5-year plan, and it will guide us as we implement our plan to get high-speed internet to every household. So how are we doing this also? Well, once we have this plan, this 5-year plan, we will be able to submit this plan and obtain federal funding. So we will be receiving through the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, which you may have heard about this last year, that was passed through the federal government, to help support multiple aspects of accessibility. So it's infrastructure, and this is a big one. That's a big chunk of it. Equity. So that's making sure that everyone has the opportunity to do so, whether it's this affordability we talked about, or understanding how to access it, or understanding how to use the devices. It also includes 4 different funding pools. So we have, in addition to what is called BEAD, or the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Infrastructure side, it includes also this Digital Equity Act. And so you can see this pie is a pretty big pie. A lot of it is going to go to the infrastructure, but this also includes this digital equity. And we're going to have some funding opportunities with planning to help local communities help us develop this plan. There's also a tribal connectivity. So the tribes are able to apply for these funds directly. our state funds can also go towards tribal areas and help build those out. And then there is the fourth pool is a competitive grant, and this is enabling middle mile. This grant program is now closed. The state did apply for it, as well as many, many other entities. In fact, of the 1 billion that was available across the country, there was 5 billion in ask, but we're still hopeful. But this money that we will be getting for the BEAD program, the state will get at least a minimum of 100 million. And then based on the number of identified unserved households in the state, we will get more. So some of the cities, we reached out to the counties to help us in identifying actual address locations across the state. If you feel there will be a map that the FCC will be releasing on the 18th of this week. It is will show locations, and if you are can have your mapping departments look at these and see if there's any address locations that are not on the map that should be a available broadband serviceable location, then we want to know about it, because those that are missing, then we won't get funding for those. But all of these areas that we can identify where there are addresses that should get service that may or may not get it, those that don't get it, we will receive a formulaic amount of funding to help support our programs.
Rebecca, let me interrupt with a question. One thing that really stood out to me a moment ago when you showed that map is how much of the urban Salt Lake County area was at least underserved. Why?
Well, it's kind of interesting. There are just pockets here and there. We like to call them donut holes. So we've got some really great coverage across the state, but there might be a neighborhood here and there that has just been left out. So we maybe have a provider that came this direction and a provider that came this direction. And then here's a neighborhood that just over time didn't get the fiber laid there, or they don't have connection because they're just down a single household down a street somewhere, and it's costly to get them connected. But that's what we need to find out about, is whether it's urban, whether it's rural. Do you have a neighbor? Do you know someone that is not able to connect? Do you know if they have internet, but they're still on an old copper telephone line? So a lot of those, that they might have internet, but they're not getting this high-speed internet.
And I'm sure local leaders could help in that respect, just reaching out to their constituents, their residents, to find out where those pockets exist, where those donut holes, is that what you call them, where they exist? Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking a little bit earlier offline about our speed test campaign, and I've got a slide at the end, and I'll share that information. But this is one way that's really effective that will be very helpful for us, is to get all of the communities to participate, your citizens to do a speed test at home. Gotta get on your devices and run the speed test. It needs to be ours at speedtest.utah.gov. We can map it, and then we can see where there is a specific need. So this is our anticipated schedule. We've launched publicly. We've already started going out with our consulting firm, that's Forox, with our Connecting Utah team. We have launching the DCP stands for Digital Connectivity Plan, sorry for acronyms. We've launched it publicly, or we will collect and analyze data, initiate stakeholder outreach and public engagement efforts, and begin the challenge process for FCC broadband maps. So that was the map challenge I talked to you about. Finalizing stakeholder outreach in the winter of 2023 on public engagement efforts. And then we're going to draft this 5-year action plan. And then this digital connectivity plan will incorporate the digital equity plan. Now, this is something Liz has been working on. Liz, if you want to jump in now or anytime to talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, so there is this added component. When we talk about digital connectivity, we're talking about the whole thing, not just is there internet coming to the home, but also can people use it, and can they use it productively and effectively and safely? That's a big question here. And so one component of this planning process is asking what other barriers are there that stop people from fully participating in the online world, and how can we answer those? And so some of those answers are things that we've already tried, that we already know work, like how Rebecca talked about that library checking out a computer and checking out a Wi-Fi hotspot to that person. That's something that exists and that works. But there's also a lot of barriers that we haven't solved and that we don't know how to solve. So I think we're going to have to see some new solutions. And in the next few years and in this plan, we're going to have to propose some innovative things. And most frequently, these efforts are effective when they are locally designed and locally driven. And so this is really the opportunity for cities to step up and say, here's something a local community center has an idea about. And then for the state to say, that sounds fantastic, we're sure it'll work. You know, we can target some funding towards this. We can focus on this as a way to increase connectivity as a holistic picture. So that's one aspect of this planning process.
Thanks very much for that, Liz. And that, again, that's a good reminder that yes, the state is getting all of this funding, but we're not the ones that are building it out. This is happening on the local effort. We're not the ones that are implementing the programs. We're just funding them. So we will have the funds, we will have grant programs and applications for communities to apply for providers, for nonprofits, entities to apply for these funds to implement these programs. So in the spring of 2023, then we will have the complete plan. We will release it for about 30 days for public comment for anybody to add to or challenge. And then we will submit this plan to the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, that Vikram works for. And then we will open a local technical assistance and funding program. And then in the fall of 2023, we're hopeful at that point, then we will have funds from this 100+ million, the capacity grant funds for digital equity, and then we will implement this. But before we get there, we have funds that we are just receiving now. We are going to have an application grant process if local communities want to develop their own. And we hope they do. We need them to do that and then submit those. So this is how local communities can help. Local coordination, create or update your local high-speed internet plan. Sorry, I have got to take a sip. It's winter time and the furnace is on.
Rebecca, I was just going to fill a space for a minute there.
Okay.
Asking,
Go right ahead.
Do communities usually have a high-speed internet plan? From what you've seen?
We started some a few years ago, but this would need to be updated. And I would say there are a few that has been at the forefront. It really has been. And they've made some efforts, but so yes, but not a lot. And it depends upon the community. Some communities are very well served and they are have worked with their providers and are doing great. Whereas others may be doing great and yet they still have those pockets. And yeah, so
okay,
this is where though this funding can come in. If they would like to apply to hire somebody to help them create this plan, either a consultant or hire someone maybe part-time to come in to do surveys. We will be conducting some surveys on a statewide level, but you know, on a local grassroots effort, that's when a lot more work can be accomplished. So,
and that's what several of our attendees today are looking forward to hearing is how to go about accessing that. So, go ahead, Rebecca. We're anxious to hear more.
Well, and this is a process. So we don't have our grant application open yet, but we anticipate it will be soon. And we will stay in touch with the league when this happens, and we will open this opportunity. We do have right now, we have a website, and I'll share that with you in a couple of slides, but to have all the elected officials, your local employees, your government employees, your citizens, every organization to complete the Connecting Utah survey. And then to join in on a Connecting Utah at our local workshops. So We have, over the last week or two, have been sending out emails to every one of the county elected officials asking to come. When we've gotten a yes or an okay from those elected officials, then they began reaching out to the cities, because this is for the cities. So if you haven't heard about this yet, you can reach out to us, reach out to your county officials and say, hey, we want to have Connecting Utah come here and let's talk about how we can develop our plan. And then partnering. So working with the providers, the local providers that are in your area or that are nearby, seeing where can you collaborate? Where can you work together with the community groups and bolster the participation? How can we get them to participate in other programs? And we have another federal program that we can talk about in a little bit too. And then share this. So as you develop this plan, then share the plan with us, with the Connecting Utah. Share it in your communities. Share it in your meetings, and then in the application that the providers, those that will apply for the infrastructure. So this is our contact information to connect with us. Our website, if you go to allonline.utah.gov, you will find different pages that are relevant to whether it's the citizens, elected officials, government employees, and their surveys along with that information. It's a quick and easy way to do it. You don't have to leave your office, your home. You can just do it right there. Let us know what your needs are. You can share this out to your communities, would be wonderful. Our email, connectingutah@utah.gov, and then we have a hotline. And, and this is what I tossed in. What speeds do you and your neighbors get? So this is our speed test campaign that we've done. I thought I had a slide. I think I must have switched it out, but it's speedtest.utah.gov.
And Rebecca, this is just a quick and easy test that residents can take at home on their personal computer, and it will literally tell them what the speed of their connection is, right?
Yep, anywhere in the state of Utah, actually, if they know the address, would help us. Like if they go up to Beaver Mountain and they spend the weekend there, if they wanted, if they would, and they got an address, put it in there, take the speed test, let us know.
And then are you seeing the results coming in from that speed test?
Yes, we are. And it's very, very helpful. Now there's a public facing map, and I'll share that with you when I'm done with our slides, because I found it really too challenging to do two in one thing, but you can see the results. There's a public facing map. The public facing map does not identify, specific addresses. So, but we have that internally that we don't share, but that will help us to know here's specific areas that are in this whole neighborhood. So it's not just one house. It's got to be this house and the neighbor's house and the neighbor's house. We need at least a 5% participation to get an accurate, number is for a need.
So I hate to keep interrupting, Rebecca, but
I love it.
we will put this information on our website, ulct.org, under the resources tab, under communications. So we'll also put the speed test out there that you can share with your residents. I took it. It's easy to do. Like I said, it just takes a few minutes, and it's really interesting to see how in an urban area you could have such differences from one neighborhood to the next. So hopefully those results will be helpful in securing the funding that we need as we proceed with it. So Rebecca, please proceed.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so
I
much.
want to add on that same note. I know that this information has been pushed out through ULCT before, but there is material already written on that same website, speedtest.utah.gov, that you can post on your city social media, or that you could put in a city newsletter if you have it. It's already written, so you don't have to think about what to say or how to phrase this. You can copy it off of the website. So if you don't mind passing out the information that way, that's incredibly helpful to us.
That's super great. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yep, it's under toolkit. You just scroll down on the page and it's all there. And then also, this is a program, the federal program that's already in place. The money is already here. It's already available. So to provide up to $30 a month towards broadband service for low-income households. And we have a list of households that are eligible, those that are on Medicaid, SNAP, Pell Grant, if they're students, and if they're in the household. It doesn't have to be the whole household, just at least one member of the household. If they're on the school lunch program, things like that, then they can apply, ensure their eligibility, and then they go directly to the providers to enroll in that. And that gives a subsidy so that their monthly bill can be up to $30 less each month. So at acp.utah.gov is another one. And that's another slide. I had it and I must have switched it out. I'm sorry. I'll get it right next time.
So you said acp.utah.gov.
Right. Affordable Connectivity Program.
Great.
And that will take you to our local website where you can see local providers list and local map, but then it will take you a link directly to the FCC where they can apply for it. And then this is our logo. This is our Connect Utah. This is our program that we're going to be running this year through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And while we want to turn the time over to Vikram and he can keep talking, I can find the speed test website and not waste your time, but let him visit with you.
That's okay. I think you've covered pretty much everything, Rebecca, and I think I don't have too much more to add. I kind of want to hear if there are specific areas people have questions about.
And the thing about having Vikram, let me just toss in here, he's our federal program officer. So he's a representative right here in the state of Utah who can give us direct help and direct answers with any of this federal funding.
And Vikram, we did have some questions from some people joining our webinar today about, directly accessing the funds. And I think that we've heard a lot about that from Rebecca. And maybe from your perspective, Vikram, maybe you can tell us what sort of funding is available now and what's coming, what we can anticipate for our communities. And I'm sure that there's been a lot of discussion about this federally because recently we've had the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law go through and that was huge, I imagine. Can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, I mean, so basically from what you guys know from this $1 trillion bill, about 65 billion was given towards broadband. And I think there's a couple of areas that you guys can access. So there's going to be opportunities, and I just want to highlight this, some of these timelines here. So Rebecca talked about some of these timelines. I do want to acknowledge that some of these timelines are getting kind of pushed back a little. So for example, the BEAD infrastructure funds, there's a good chance that by the time those grant applications open up, it may be 2024 already. And then regarding Digital Equity Act, I think it's relevant, especially for some of the larger cities and well-connected cities. And for example, I know Mill Creek actually has a digital equity plan already. And so part of what it is basically looking at how can you utilize funds for communities that are well served, have multiple providers, but there's another group of individuals that have high-speed internet. They're not in these donut holes, but they're not enrolling in internet, and that represents a good part of the population in Utah. For example, this affordable connectivity program actually, in at least in the western region of the state and in the country as well, Utah is one of the lowest enrollment rates in the affordable connectivity program. And so and this is enrollment in terms of who is eligible. And so what that means is there are eligible individuals for the Affordable Connectivity Program that haven't signed up. And so when you talk about the Digital Equity Act, one of the areas it can also address is who has internet, but for different challenges, whether it's lack of skills, lack of trust. There's a variety of reasons that people are comfortable with not having home internet, maybe because they're okay with just going to the library or community center. They're okay with a smartphone data plan. So basically looking at, and I want to mention that, we don't want to, tell people what they need, because for some people, they're okay with going to the library and they don't want to have the internet in their home. But what the Affordable Connectivity Program is there for is to say, if cost is a barrier, there are internet plans that you can pay $0 a month. And if there's another pandemic or shutdown and libraries are closed, then you will have something in place to protect you, or a way to access the internet. And so, the Digital Equity Act, as Liz said, is really going to be an opportunity for especially some of the urban and rural cities to get creative with bringing forward needs and ideas. And we'll run a similar timeline to the BEAD program as far as when the funding will become available. And I'll just say that the Digital Equity Act has a portion of funding that you can apply for directly from the state broadband office, but then there will also be a federally run program that you can apply at a national level for as well. So there's two pools of funding. And then the last thing related to the Affordable Connectivity Program I don't have on my slide, actually literally right now as we're talking, the FCC is hosting the first webinar on the Affordable Connectivity Outreach Grant Program that they are going to be, that they've just released the details for the notice of funding. So that is basically a program for governments and other organizations that want to provide in-person affordable connectivity enrollment support. So if you want to host events on a regular basis at libraries or community centers, health centers, churches, a variety of places, that is another available funding source, and the window for those applications actually close in January. So it's a tight turnaround for that one, and there's a 2-year period of performance from March of 23 to March 2025. So it's just another opportunity, especially both urban and rural communities to consider.
So Vikram, I have a question for you. There are areas like where I live, for example, that there's only one provider.
Where do you live?
It's in the unincorporated area of Salt Lake County.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are areas where, well, I would assume there are areas where service is just too expensive on behalf of the providers to bring it in at this point. Are there? And if so, what are residents or what are local leaders to do about that?
Well, interestingly enough, in my previous job, I actually consulted for the MSD in developing a digital connectivity plan, which covers unincorporated Salt Lake County. So I know very well those challenges are unique because in unincorporated areas, in many cases, you don't have the same type of governmental support to advocate for these homes. And so oftentimes the homes you'll see throughout the state that are, unserved are unincorporated pockets of every county. And so for you, I would definitely encourage, the best way you're going to be able to aggregate demand is by working at working with the county, working with the MSD, and also working at a regional level, because demand aggregation is a really important concept related to serving some of these pockets, because one pocket on their own may not be viable enough, but when you're aggregating the demand with other, neighboring communities, it becomes more viable, basically. And as if you're working with a government or a local government to build support, you can build a much better business case when you've got 3 other communities that say we want to be your customers, basically. And so that would be kind of my biggest piece, is working with your local governments, but also working with local governments and local communities around you, because that's what's going to build the business case for it to be profitable. Because a lot of unincorporated Salt Lake County is in the canyons, and it's very expensive to build down there.
Well, the one strong advantage then of living in incorporated Utah cities and towns. So we've got local leaders that care.
Can I add
Oh,
something to that too? So we have a map, it's called a residential availability map, and you can go to that. If you go to broadband.utah.gov, and Claire Warnock's been typing some of these in, I appreciate that. She can add that one. We have this map, and you can see who the providers are in the area if they're not right at your home. So this is the thing about this grant program, is that that's the intent, is to be able to incentivize now these providers that are nearby, that has just too costly for them to reach out into these other areas, that now with just a 25% match, they will be able to build out this infrastructure to your homes. And like Vikram said, to work with your local governments, and I'm telling our local governments, reach out to your local providers that are there and see if they're not ready and interested, because we're talking to them. And many of them are saying, yes, we're interested. With this grant program, we will be able to reach these pockets. We have other providers who are saying that are interested, even that are not in the area, jumping in there and maybe picking up as part of a business model some of these little pockets that are here and there.
During COVID, we all saw how important it was to maintain that connection with your residents, to be able to go online with your city council meeting or your town hall. And now that things are getting a little bit more like life was before COVID, I'm wondering, in your opinion, what expectation there is from local leaders to be able to keep up the work to make high-speed internet available to their residents? What sort of ethical obligation exists, I suppose?
I can jump on that because I think I have the least skin in the game here to make wild predictions about the future. So I think that the future of broadband and the future of internet across Utah and across our nation is as a public utility. It is becoming an expectation that homes will be connected, that residents will have the option to choose their service provider or choose their service level. But the fact of the infrastructure, it's assumed at this point, or it's beginning to be assumed. And I think that that's our future, for it to be considered a public utility. And so in the same way that our residents would be shocked if they moved somewhere and we said, oh, but there's no water anywhere in the city, sorry. Maybe they want that, and maybe they sought out the area specifically to be totally off grid, and that is a choice that they are able to make. But there is an expectation for the city to provide a certain amount of services so that people can go on with their lives. And I think that that is where we're going to see internet in just a few years.
I'll invite those who are still with us in this webinar to ask any questions now. One thing I did want you to stress again, and anyone feel free to jump in, what needs to be done right now? I mean, what's coming now? What opportunities exist now, and what sort of work needs to begin now?
Planning, because basically grants are all going to open up a year from now. And so exactly what Rebecca and Liz have said is begin the process of reaching out to the stakeholders to develop the plans for potential projects, whether they're digital equity projects, whether they're infrastructure projects. But the goal is basically to position yourselves as local communities, not only identifying projects, but building and developing the business case and the needs case for your project, because you're going to be competing amongst other governments and regions across the state. And so you're going to kind of have to build a strong use case, business case and needs case for why your community has needs that need to be prioritized.
So even though there will be a lot of dollars available, there will be competition for those dollars. So therefore, planning is the key, and getting people on board who can help with that planning and getting the data. And Rebecca, why don't you stress again about how important it is to invite your residents to, so that you can gather that data?
Yes, that is so important. Because we've reached out and I've had elected officials say, oh, I'm good, we're good here. But if you do you realize that according to the American Community Survey, which was done just from 2021, 10% of our households are not accessing the internet. Why? It's not a single answer. So and you have people in your community who are prepared to address these issues. You don't have to take it all on yourself. This is what we're finding. We have libraries, we have schools, we have chambers of commerce, and there are all of these stakeholders who have an interest in making sure that whether it's getting them devices or teaching them how to do it or helping them with the affordability, that it's very doable.
Now we have a question in our chat room. I don't know who wants to take this, but Janelle Seeley says, we are installing a public internet utility infrastructure in our city right now. Would adopting a digital equity plan be beneficial for our residents to qualify for ACP grant funding? And then she says a utility model fiber network. Who wants to jump in on that?
I can take that. So absolutely. Adopting a digital equity plan within your city would be a fantastic move. It gives you a solid document to bring to the state as we work on our planning process, and to say, here's what we need locally, so that then instead of us having to take a top-down view of what's happening and make some guesses, we can say, and for this city, please refer to this plan. And so then that gives you direct control over the priorities in your city. As far as with the ACP grant funding, you are eligible for that whether you do or don't have a digital equity plan in place for your city. But that will strengthen your case. And there's a limited amount of money in that pool. I think it's a good amount for Utah, but it is limited. And so having that plan in place, or at least being in the process of developing it, would absolutely strengthen an application there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Liz.
And I want to add that I think some of the funding opportunities that the FCC program are some of the same things that the state will consider for their Digital Equity Act programs. I definitely think ACP enrollment and outreach will be funded in the digital equity funds as well. I think another big thing to consider, especially with public internet utility, I'm not sure what specifically you guys are doing in Providence, but and this is something that's a requirement as part of the BEAD funding, is that providers, any BEAD funded project has a low cost option. And so be thinking about what that looks like. If the city is going to be developing some of those things, looking at how you guys can offer that low cost option.
And Vikram, did you address this? She follows up, are the funds allocated to a city to disperse or individual with the ACP?
Are the funds allocated to a city?
So they're not allocated for the Affordable Connectivity Program. So the providers are just basically reimbursed. So if you are with CenturyLink, or you're with, AT&T, or whoever you're going with, whoever this provider is, and you're eligible, you will just get $30 off your bill. You'll just see, oh, there's $30 off my bill. And then the provider who is providing the service, then they will be reimbursed that amount from the federal government.
So this funding is not meant to compete in any way with private industry. It's meant to just supplement what's available to residents, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then Harriet,
The providers, if you go to their websites, you will oftentimes see affordable connectivity program. They're using this also because this is allowing them now to get customers that couldn't otherwise get it before.
and then Harriet Dickerson asks, is there a sample digital plan available to be reviewed? And you
At
know,
a city, at a local level, at a
Well,
city level.
you mentioned that some cities have begun planning for this, and I wondered if you wanted to state more specifically where one could seek an example of a best practice.
I have just posted a link to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance's website. They have a collection of resources, some related to planning and some more broad. I'm trying to find a more specific page, but if I don't find it before the end of the webinar, this link I just put in definitely has it. And they have examples from, it looks like 6 cities across the US, and they have some general guides for plans. And then I know they have a template for a city plan, so I will find that.
Oh, that's good. I know that it's not necessarily just Utah where some folks are already doing what they need to do to begin the process, but yeah, throughout the nation. So we'll definitely add that to our resources.
And I want to just throw out that in terms of here in Utah, who's done plans, Salt Lake City has developed a digital equity plan that they have adopted. The city of Provo has also adopted a digital opportunity. I don't know if it's an ordinance or policy. And then also the greater Salt Lake Municipal Services District has a digital connectivity plan as well. And then Mill Creek and South Salt Lake are in the final processes of putting together and adopting a plan right now. So
Great.
those are the ones that I know of right now in our state. So
All right. So anything else from our panelists today? Anything you want to add? I really appreciate, as well as everyone listening, I'm sure appreciates the information you've given us today, Rebecca, Liz, and Vikram. So that's super helpful. And please pass along any resources or opportunities as they come up, and we will share them at the League with our members. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you so much. And if you haven't heard from us, if the cities haven't heard from us yet, please reach out. We will connect.
Okay, great. And everyone do the speed test, send it out to your residents. Let's all take the speed test. So thank you once again to our panelists. Our next lunch with the League will be coming up on December 6th. Cybersecurity will be the topic. So a somewhat related topic that's very important, as many cities know all too well. When those firewalls go down, who knows what could happen and what sort of damage could be caused to your city. So join us then. Also, we've got another program that's just launching with workshops, Your Land, Your Plan. That will begin January 9th. And for our members, this is so important. It's an opportunity to help you unlock underutilized assets in your community and figure out a better use for those assets. These are hidden treasures in your community that you already have. You just may not know that they're there or realize the potential that they have. That will be January 9th. You can find out more under the events tab on our website, ulct.org. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again to our panelists. And we'll end a little bit early. Have an awesome day, folks.